Women of Real Estate. I am your host, Steve Matley. Today we are talking with the famous Bill Tan from the LA Real Estate Investor Association and from BT Investments. Bill, I want to talk to you about one of the things that you are truly an expert in, and I know you've done very well at it, and that is investing in secured investments, basically notes. Now, if a lot of people out there don't understand even what that means, I talk to people, they don't know what notes are. One thing I do where I teach at a college, and one thing I do is when I try to explain notes, I pull a dollar bill out of my pocket, and I say, see right here, it says a note.
Federal Reserve note
It's
at the top
note.
of it.
That's right. The piece of paper itself has no actual value, but it represents something that has value. It represents the full value of the goods and services of the United States of America. That's what backs that up, which right now may not be as strong as we hoped it was, but that's a different story.
And because there's so many more notes.
That's right. So explain to us for what you do. You're doing secured investments through notes. Explain to our listeners what that is.
Sure. When we call something a note, we're generally talking about a promissory note, which is a promise to pay. And in my business, I refer to real estate secured notes, meaning this promise to pay secured by actual real estate.
So how is it secured?
Else. Now, we secure it by putting what's called a lien or a deed of trust here in the state of California, a mortgage on the East Coast. They also have something called a contract for deed in the Midwest. These are all things that secure my IOU, because a promissory note is an IOU. That's what a note is. I owe you this much, and I will pay you so much a month for so many months.
Okay,
if it's monthly.
So it's the collateral on the loan, basically.
So because I may have lent them money, or I may have sold them a property and extended them the equity, my equity in the property. I don't know them from Adam, right? I don't know if they're good people. I don't know if they're going to pay me all the time. I may check their credit, but that doesn't always say everything that they're going to make payments on time. So to make sure that they pay me, just like a institution, I secure their IOU against real estate, and particular real estate, and that real estate has to have so much debt against it, a loan against it. Otherwise, I won't either put a loan against it or I won't extend a note.
Okay. So similarly, if I go to buy a car and I'm financing it, I go to the car lot, I give them some money, and then the rest of it, they give me a loan. I take the car. If I do not pay on the car, they come and take my car away from me again because it was secured on the car. Is that correct?
The lender that lent you the money to buy the car, everybody's heard of this, they kept the pink slip.
That's right. And so that means they have the right to come and take that car away if I do not pay. Similarly, in a note, a real estate note, if I do not pay the loan for purchasing that property, you have the right, if you own the note, to come and take that property away.
And the mechanism thereof. Yes, there's a mechanism to take it back. And just like the pink slip, we use a deed of trust here in the state of California. That's our pink slip.
Now, how is that different than title? Because if I own a house, I have title to it. It says it's mine.
Yes, and you have what's called a grant deed here in the state of California. It's different in other states, warranty deeds, and so on. So you own the property, just that we are lenders against the property. We don't own the property. You own the property. You take care of the property. You're responsible for everything, including making payments to us who lent you the money or gave you the note to own that property.
Okay, so again, going back to the car analogy, it's the difference between the pink slip and the registration.
Pink slip and the registration.
The registration says this is my car, I'm responsible for it, I have to pay the insurance on it, I'm the one that can drive it. The pink slip says this is who actually fully owns it, has the asset.
Yes.
Right, free and clear. And so as long as that there's a mortgage on a property or a loan against a property, you don't own it free and clear, you have an obligation to pay someone else for it because they can take that property back if you don't perform.
And unlike a car, you won't have somebody come in the middle of the night and take the car
They'll
back if you
knock
don't
on the door at 6 a.m. and have you removed. It's kind of more like it, yes.
No, there's a mechanism here for foreclosure. It's called foreclosure,
right.
And there's a due process that is going through that you use to take back the property if they don't pay you.
Okay, and now, a lot of that.
Now, let me also add that if they're dealing with someone like me, I'm a human being. I can go talk to you and say, hey, what's going on in your life that you're not able to pay me right now? And so because I can do that, then maybe we can work out a different arrangement.
As opposed to Citibank or Bank of America, where it's a faceless corporation somewhere in a tower in New York City and you have no idea who you could talk to.
And it's a JOB to them. It's just cut and dry. They're just going to do it, and they don't care.
You're just a number.
They're just a number.
Okay. So that brings up the other question. Typically, banks, like we just mentioned, or credit unions, or those kind of places, they own these notes. How does an individual person, just you or I, suddenly become the bank and own the note?
Well, one of two ways. Okay, if it was an institutionally created note, like what we were just talking about, sometimes they have bad notes, or sometimes they're acquired by another entity, another bank, and the bank's charter doesn't allow them to own notes.
Okay.
That happened in 1998, where the largest note buyer in the country of private notes got sold to Citibank. Citibank had no idea about seller finance notes, didn't understand them at all, sold off all those notes.
Okay, so that goes into another, basically gets as a market out there to sell these instruments, kind of in a resale market.
There's a resale market, and it is not that well known. It's much more well known now, but it's not as well known as it used to be.
Okay, and so if I buy a note, and so I could actually have the loan for a house, let's say in Columbus, Ohio, even though I live here in California, and those people may or may not even know that they're not with the bank they thought they were signed the papers with, right?
Well, usually they're making payments to somewhere,
right,
and then they get a notification to start making your payments elsewhere.
Okay.
And when that happens, they don't really know what happened, but what happens is that note got sold.
And so they just all of a sudden they're sending the check to a different address and to a different name, and now you are in place of the bank. So just because you signed the papers for your mortgage at some bank doesn't mean that's who's going to end up holding that loan.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And when I buy the note and I take title to the mortgage. It's called an assignment of the mortgage.
Okay. And then are these performing or non-performing? And you kind of tell the audience what that means, not
Sure.
performing.
Performing notes is when they're actually making their payments on time. They may come a little bit later than they should come, but they're making those payments. That's known as a performing note.
Okay.
If their situation in life changes and they're unable to make payments, which has happened recently, those are called non-performing notes. And there are times when banks and other lending institutions have to sell those off because they can't manage those any longer.
Because they're not getting money on them.
They're not getting any money, and the only way that banks make money is by lending money.
Okay. So here's the question. If you have somebody who's not paying on it, why would you want to buy a debt from someone that's a bad debt? Why would that be a good investment?
Very good question. Now, I'm in the business of buying debt, right? So I have to accept risks. And if I'm going to accept the risk of somebody who's not making a payment, then I am not going to pay the face value on that note. I'm going to pay a fraction of it.
Okay, so I've got a $300,000 house that a valued house, and on it is a $200,000 note. So there's $100,000 equity. They haven't paid on it, so when you buy it, you may pay, say, $100,000 for the $200,000 note secured by a $300,000 property.
That is one scenario. It's not likely. You'll probably pay more than the $100,000
Okay.
because that $200,000 note has $100,000 of protective equity because the house is worth $300,000.
Okay.
And so whenever you buy a note, you want to check what is the protective equity behind my investment.
And you want it to be as large a positive as possible, probably.
As large a positive as possible. Now, there are first position notes and second position notes. And first position notes are those that were recorded in the recorder's office first by date.
That's probably the original home loan.
That's probably the original home loan. And then if they took out a second, that was taken out at a later date.
So that was for the kitchen remodel or the swimming pool or whatever. Okay.
And so that's in second position. It is in second priority to the first one. And so first priority liens are also always much more valuable. Seconds are less valuable. And so they are sold at much greater discounts.
Okay, and the reason for that is if there was a situation where there was a default and the property was foreclosed, the debts get paid off in the order they were recorded. So first position gets paid off first, then second, then third. So if you are in a lower position, maybe the property is sold, and after they've paid off the outstanding debts, there's not enough to pay off your debt because you're number 3 in line. And of course, the first debt that gets paid off is property tax.
First
Always.
one is property tax.
Yeah.
And because you are in a junior position. We call it junior position. So let's say you're in second position. In order to protect yourself in case of default, you have to make payments on the first.
Okay. So that means the money there is I'm buying that note for less than it's worth. Now, how do I start making money out of that because they haven't been paying on it? How do I turn that around and make it a positive?
There's two ways. And first and foremost is you can go to the borrower and say, hey, what's changed in your life? Okay. And you say, how much can you afford to pay? Okay. You've been making the payments on the first, or you haven't been making the payments on the first, but what can you afford to pay? If they can't make payments on the first, then you want to foreclose on the property and take the property back.
Okay. So what you did then was you basically got a piece of property appraised at $300,000 for maybe half of its value by buying the note.
Correct.
Okay.
And if somebody at the foreclosure sale doesn't pay more than that, then you get to own the property.
Okay. And if they do pay more than that, they otherwise you get paid off. for your
Otherwise,
note.
we get paid off.
Okay. So
And
your
so-
money's back to you.
Right. So a lot of times, when I'm in second position, I extend payments to the first to protect my position. Then I go through the foreclosure process.
Okay. And then if they start paying, so let's say they were supposed to be paying $1,000 a month and they say, honestly, we can't pay more than $600 a month. That's okay because you got the note at less.
Let's say and this is actual case. Let's say it was $100,000 second that the bank just wrote off.
Okay.
They actually just wrote it off. It's a loss. And I bought it for anywhere from $3,000 to $16,000. And if they start making $600 a month payments, I'm as happy as can be.
And they'll do that until the note's paid off. And now you've got a cash flow.
Until the note is paid off. However, they still owe me the $100,000
That's right.
because I bought the $100,000 position for only 3 to 16.
And so whenever they sell the house, you're going to get that back.
I will get that back. Or if they refinance it, if their situation changes, they're able to refinance it, they have to come talk to me and pay it off in full. Now, it's very difficult to buy seconds at that kind of a discount nowadays.
Right. Okay, we're going to have to go to another commercial break. When we come back, we'll wrap up this discussion and we'll get into some more just fascinating, unusual real estate deal making with Bill Tan. Don't go anywhere.